I'll go ahead and just start at the top here. Thank you,
Okay.
thank you so much for taking a minute out. I want to begin our conversation with living through a pandemic for the last 3.5 years. How did you get through it, and how has it changed you now that we're kind of all emerging out of it?
Yeah, it changed my life completely actually, because going into the pandemic, I had actually wanted to um file for divorce from my ex, but with everything shut down, we were in the house together. But the beautiful thing about that was that I had time on my hands. And so I started writing about my experiences that I was having in my marriage, which weren't so lovely. And they ended up becoming a book when the pandemic was over. I was able to publish my book about my abusive experiences. And now I'm on my way to publishing two more because it's
Wow.
unfortunately resonated with so many people. But I think because of that, it literally did change my life because, I live in a small town in the middle of nowhere. And, there really wasn't much for somebody with a college degree. So I was cleaning houses, for how many years, just trying to make income, to pay the mortgage and pay the bills. But now I'm actually using my degree in journalism and I'm a writer and I'm able to travel and meet people and broaden my experiences. So the pandemic actually was amazing for me to give me that time to write the book.
And I think there was a lot of people that live silver linings. It doesn't take away from the tragedy that happened, but I think there was a
Right.
lot of people that got time, clarity. I mean, mental health became an issue because everybody was looking within. So it
Right.
seems like your book's coming out. It's almost like a perfect storm, not only for you, but for the readers.
It really was. And for myself too, because like you said, the mental health, I mean, fortunately, when you're writing, you kind of need to be alone and be focused, but having to dive really deep and really go back to all those experiences that were so awful, it helped me make sense of them. And it gave me the time to really think about, my own role in everything and understand even my ex-husband's role in things. And there was issues with my mother and stepfather and all this other stuff. But yeah, I mean, it gave me time for that introspection because I think that, as opposed to going to therapy where you hash all this stuff out, answering somebody else's questions, I was kind of asking myself the questions. And then once the publisher got involved, it's answering their questions to revise the stories the way that they needed to be told, a little bit better for people to understand. So it was better than therapy, literally just
I
delving
get
into
that.
everything so deeply.
I get that. I think writing, the process of really seriously writing and being as honest as you can is probably just as good, if not better, than therapy. Because you really do have to just put the mirror right down in front of you. And you can't escape yourself. You can't catch your shadow. So you just got to go
No.
with it.
You do. And I think there's something to be said for the process too of just even like picking the right word. I mean, I know like when we're in college or, high school, we open the thesaurus, or I guess now you can use apps or whatever. But, to really describe something, you have an idea of what it was and you know how you felt, but you're trying to find that word that
Yep.
really expresses it to a T. It kind of is like that word. It's kind of so when you stumble upon the right word, because as you know, with writing, half the time you're just sitting here like looking around, like hoping for something to come to you.
Yeah.
And when it does, you're like, that's it.
Yep.
But
Yep.
that word being so pinpointing that right way to say something, I think is how it communicates it so perfectly to the
Yeah.
reader then so that they know what you're talking about, as opposed to just talking with a friend and saying, oh yeah, it sucked and he did this or what.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
We can use more accurate language when we're
Yeah.
writing. That's the whole point.
Absolutely. So let's get into what you do for a living. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students. One of the kids looks up and says, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I am going to say that what I do for a living is I help people understand the difficult circumstances that they have gone through. That is how I would explain it to a child. And I would say I do that by telling stories. And so that's pretty much what I've done, is just tell stories, whether I'm podcasting, writing my books, because I've got the other two coming out next year. I have a blog on my, all this stuff I'm doing. It's just basically to tell stories that people are going to relate to, and if we can connect and I can share resources, with them, whether it's for their mental health or, they need divorce advice, refer if they're looking for a women's shelter because they need to get out of there, I can hopefully direct them in the right way.
Yeah. So what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream to grow up and become?
Oh, I got good ones. So this is really dumb, but I wanted to be like some swanky lounge singer. Like I just
Nice.
imagined wearing like gowns and being in some like dark, like, red velvet like drapes around me and just a grand piano behind me, but I can't sing worth a crap. You don't want to hear me sing. Then at some point I wanted to be an astronaut. Then I
Yep.
wanted to be a neurosurgeon, but I'm smart, but you don't want me operating on your brain. So we write.
Yeah. Well, and you had mentioned journalism, so let's peel back the layers. Where were you born and raised, and how did these seeds become a part of your desire to write and to tell stories?
It's crazy how it happened. I was born and raised in Chicago,
Okay.
Illinois. And I actually, in my childhood circumstances, because I'm a survivor of child abuse, it was such a deep-seated need for me to get justice, and I couldn't get it for myself. So I mean, even by like 11, 12, 13 years old, I was like, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to defend kids and get them out of homes that they shouldn't be in. I was all fired up. But by the time I got to college, I went to DePaul University, also in Chicago. I was going to start in pre-law,
Mhm.
but I realized, reality does set in and you're like, oh, but people that are guilty actually get off on their crimes because you have to actually follow certain parameters of the law to convict them and provide evidence and all this good stuff. And, when you're young, you don't think about those
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
And I honestly just thought, I didn't think that I could mentally handle people that I knew should be locked up
Yeah.
being freed. And especially if I wasn't able to convict the ones that should be convicted. So it was, I know it's a weird thing, but I just had to kind of take a step back and say, maybe I can go about it differently. And it just so happened I had many professors that said, no, you need to be a writer, you need to go into journalism.
Yeah.
And I did well in public speaking. I was not one of those people that got up in front of the class and started shaking. I'm more like a doll that you pull a string and I just go. So
Yeah.
I just kind of fell into it. But the beauty of it is that I am able to reach people and help people just in a little bit different of a way.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So what was the first book that you read that really made you want to either write or read more?
you know what it was? It was Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. I
Wow.
mean, it's an amazing book.
Yeah.
I did love The Great Gatsby, though. That was
Yeah.
really cool too. But I really loved Frankenstein, but I also love horror movies and kind of paranormal dark stuff. So I don't know why, just a weird thing about me. But I don't know what it was about it. I just loved the way she told that story.
Yeah.
And I love that even Frankenstein wasn't even as awful a monster as he seemed to be. And maybe that's what resonated with me in all of
Yeah.
this, that things are not always what they seem. It seems
Yeah.
to be the story of my life.
So let me ask you this. What was the first thing that you wrote where you were like, wow, that's good. This is my path. This is what I need to be doing.
I mean, it was in college, but I don't know that it was anything particular. It was
Yeah.
more getting encouragement from my professors. Um, I was just I think what it is just that I'm so passionate. When I write about something or speak about something, it's something that passion is just the right word for it.
Yeah.
I just get fired up and I want to express it and I feel it so strongly. So you know, it wasn't that I wrote it so well. And even when I wrote my book, honestly, I'm embarrassed if, oh my gosh, I hope nobody ever sees the first manuscript that I sent to the publisher, because it was god awful. And it's nothing like, you know, the published version, because they almost had to coach me, you know, to come away from the journalistic way that I wrote, being more
Yeah.
direct. And I kind of just told things as factual statements versus telling a story where you want to kind of draw somebody in. And I
Mhm.
wasn't used to developing characters and all this, so it was a learning process. But there are moments even now that I write and I'm like, okay, I wrote, but then once in a while I'm like, ooh, but that's good.
Yeah, right.
That sentence right there is good.
Yeah.
So you know how it is to be a writer and your publisher's like, we're nixing the whole
Uh-huh.
chapter. And you're like, but that one line, it's
Yeah.
gotta be somewhere.
Uh-huh. Yeah, you got to save it. So you've obviously had to have good, strong people around you. Who's been a hero for you? Somebody that's really been an inspiration.
Oh goodness. My great grandma was my first inspiration, but it's because she was basically like my mother. She was just a strong woman who had been through some heck, but she loved me, and I loved her. And I think she taught me very early in life that things don't matter, money don't matter, nothing really matters except the connections you have, with the love you have with people. Those are
Yeah.
the things that matter. She taught me what was important. And more currently, I think it's my godmother. She's always stepped into that mother role that my mother wasn't willing, you know, to be for me. But my godmother, I mean, talk about strong, you know, she has stories of her own, but a very, very fiery little Latina woman. She's just the tiniest little thing, but boy, she has kind of been my crutch, you know, when I'm having a hard time. And even when I've just been down and out, and you know, in my previous marriage it was pretty bad with the abuse, but she's just that person that just kind of knows what to say, but she doesn't coddle me and give me the it's going to be okay stuff.
Yeah.
She's tough, and she toughens me up. She's more like a, okay, get up, shake it off,
Yeah.
get on with it, you
Yeah.
know. And but I love it.
Yeah.
She is a wonderful inspiration. I'm happy to have her in my life.
So if you could meet one person alive on the planet right now and spend
Oh
some
my
time with them, who would it be?
goodness, these questions put me on the spot. Um, oh, the pressure, the pressure, the pressure. There are so many. Um,
We could have a round table. You could have it like a dinner
I was
table.
gonna I could have a dinner table. Um, I don't have anyone real exciting. You know, I've always wanted to meet Dr. Ramani. She's just an expert in narcissistic abuse, and
Yeah.
that's been my unfortunate experience. But even though there's so many experts on the subject, she's just has a way of communicating it, and she's so calm and just such a lovely person, it seems. But I'd love to meet Drew Barrymore. I know
Yeah.
she's been through some stuff, and I just love her. She just shines. She just exudes this freedom, this free spirit that I love. And I'm just going to say it, and this is going to be hokey and everybody's going to laugh. Taylor Swift.
Right.
I am the oldest Swiftie. I know, I'm sorry, but that girl is intelligent. Her lyrics are unbelievably artistic.
Yeah.
And oh my goodness, I would just love to have a cup of coffee with her and just talk to her and get in her mind. She could probably teach me a little more about words and writing than
Yeah.
what I could learn anywhere else.
I guarantee that all of the people going to Arrowhead right now, that there's so many daughters that are like, let's go because I want to see her. It's just like I have a stepdaughter and she's half Latina, and she's like, she's getting interested in it now. She's talking
Yeah.
about football. I'm like, where did this come from? You know, it's like the Swift effect. It is totally getting everybody into it. So it's wild.
Yes.
It's wild. So there's always a chance. So what is your motivation every day when you wake up and you write and you ultimately change people's lives? What is that motivator for you to do that?
The motivator is how I feel when I know I am reaching people. It feels good. It feels good to know, number one, that I have let somebody else know that they're not alone, because so many times for about 4 decades of my life, I felt very alone myself. You know, I was never suicidal, but there were many, many times I didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be living my life. I just didn't want to do this anymore. Just
Yeah,
got tired of hurting.
yeah.
So to know that I am reaching people, whether it's through a podcast or somebody's reading, you know, actually right before I got on this podcast with you, I had a message on social media and somebody said, I just got your book. I'm almost out of my abusive marriage. I just wanted to let you know, I just thank you for writing this, because, you know, it's really resonating, and just, it makes me sad that people are relating to it, but it makes me happy to know that they're almost at the finish line too, that they can do this, and just to pep them up. And I wish I had had that in my life when I was going through it. So I'm able to offer that to the other people that don't have that.
So you mentioned that letter, but what was one of the first letters that you got that blew you away? One fan letter that you were just like, wow, just kind of came out of left field, or something that's just really sentimental to you?
Probably just the very first time that I had a message from somebody. It was the very first one, and I remember her name and everything. And she said, I read your book and it gave me the strength to leave my 8-year toxic relationship. This man was abusing me, but we are officially done as of Saturday night, whatever. And this was like on a Monday. And that just made me so happy.
Yeah,
Not that I'm telling people to leave their marriages and leave their partners, but that, like I said, that somebody had the strength. And I don't know what I said or what I did or what example I provided in her reading the book, but the fact that, you know, little me, I try to be humble. The fact that anything I had to say gave this woman that strength is
yeah,
beyond me. And it just shows me the impact of words and the impact of our connections in life, and everything we do. So
yeah.
if I could say something to impact her, imagine if everybody impacted other people in positive ways. The world we could live in would be so much better, I
Yeah,
would
it
hope.
would be. It would be. So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 20-year-old version of you, and you can give that version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained up to this point in your
Oh,
life. What would you what wisdom would you dispense on your young version?
I would tell her 2 things. I would tell her not to lose herself, and I would tell her it's going to be okay. I know most people would say, you know, they would give warnings and this and that, but I wouldn't want to be warned away from the man that gave me my son.
Yeah,
And honestly, let's be real. He gave me my book, my first published book. I would have never had that book that is now helping so many people if it weren't for him. So I could hate him and I could take that experience and, you know, be bitter. But I think I think I needed to go through what I needed to go through to get to where I am. So I would just tell her, don't lose yourself and it's going to be okay.
so professionally speaking, what are you the proudest of? What's the one thing that you've done that you're the proudest of?
I think it's just the fact that I got this book published. I never in a million years thought my name would be on a book that is now sitting on, you know, 2 library shelves, and that people, I mean, I look where the sales are, and I mean, somebody in Italy bought it, in Alaska and the UK and Australia, and I'm like, what do they want with my book? You know, it just seems so surreal, but it's like I said, it's just amazing to think that I'm just this one little person,
Yeah.
and people are relating to it and that they want to read it, because I mean, I've read a million books too, and I'm still reading books, but it's been an amazing accomplishment. And you know, I'm just glad that it's opened so many other doors for me, but I always have to go back to the first one, which would be publishing the book.
So what's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Hmm. Best advice. Probably, I would say just to be myself.
Yeah.
I've been told that throughout life by different people, but I think it really, truly for everybody across the board, and specifically for me, I think that's the way to be. I think too many people put on a facade, or they're afraid for some reason to be who they are or to express their opinions. And I think that's the beauty of the world, is that we're all different. And, you know, we should never shy away from who we are. I think that's when you live your best life, is when you're living it authentically, and you can't live it authentically if you're not who you are.
Yeah. So everyone out there has a perception of you, family, friends, your readers, fans, but you lead the charge. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Oh, that's a loaded question there.
That's the therapy question.
Yeah, that is the therapy question right there, because I have struggled my whole life with, you know, my self-esteem and my self-image because of the verbal abuse from childhood. I was never made to believe that I even should exist. So there's a lot there. There's a lot there. My perception of me now, though, I can say, and this is just very recent, I'm proud of myself. I don't think I'm like this strong and brave and resilient person that people make me out to be. Maybe I am, but I'm just me. I'm just me.
Yeah.
And that's all I can be, and I'm really good at it. So
There you go.
I am just who I am, and just like everyone else, trying to make it every day. I don't think any of us is any better or any worse than anyone else. We're just all trying to figure out our way in the world. And I've finally figured out my place, which is to help people through my writing and speaking. And I'm good with that. I feel like I'm a good person, and I'm doing what my purpose has always been, and it feels good.
Yeah, well said. Dana, if anyone wants to get the book, they want to hire you, reach out, anything, what's the best way to do that?
Absolutely. My website, danasdiaz.com. Everything is on there. You can click a link to buy the book there. This podcast will be on my press room page with other podcasts. Facebook, Instagram, links are on there. Reach out however you can. I'm always available.
Excellent. I love the energy, and hopefully you get to move somewhere that you want to be.
Eventually.
Yeah,
Eventually.
I get that. I mean, being a Kansas City landlocked, whenever I talk to people that are by the ocean, I'm like, man, a lot, because I drove to San Diego a couple of years ago, you know, with Florida. It's like anytime I come back here, I'm like, man, there's just nothing, nothing to look at.
I understand, but that's why we have vacation.
That's it. But that's the thing. You're in the central part of the United States, so you can kind of, you know, flange
exactly. I'm a couple hours from anywhere I want to go.
That's it. Absolutely. Thank you so much. Best of luck with everything. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care.